Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 59 based on novel. So let's start. The dragon Chilene drank the water and looked towards Qin Mu. I'm still a little hungry. I'll bring you to refine pills. Qin Mu brought this dragon Chilene to the warehouse, planning to buy some herbs to refine scarlet fire spirit pills. Meanwhile, there was a daoist opposite Jade Dragon Lake who was looking over here. As he saw Qin Mu bring the dragon Chilene away, he muttered, "This dragon lion in front of the mountain gate has come alive. Why did it come to Jade Dragon Palace for a drink? Who is that youth? Doesn't he know the water of Jade Dragon Palace is to be offered to the royal family? Oh well, as long as they don't wash in the lake, there's no need to bother with a few drinks." Qin Mu passed by Royalties Park, and saw many scholars surrounding there as cheers sounded out. Qin Mu gave a look from afar, and even the scholars from Scholars' Residence were also running over. There were also some divine arts practitioners of Divine Arts Residence, crowding Royalties Park so much that it was impenetrable. Suddenly, a loud boom sounded out as a figure got blown into the air with his head crashing downwards. A voice cried out, "Another one is defeated." Qin Mu jumped in shock. The one who got his head stuck in the ground was a prince of Royalties Park. A prince was a king's son, who was the one who dared to be so merciless. "I'm here to experience it." A girl's voice came from the crowd while Qin Mu had already walked further away. He suddenly heard another loud boom and a girl in green flew backward and crashed into the walls of Hall of Hidden Light, which was not far from him. Only a pair of slender legs were left outside. Seems to be a princess. Qin Mu looked back at the crowd and thought to himself, these moves are a little familiar, seem to be Chancellor Ba Shan's battle spells. Chancellor Ba Shan founded the ultimate skills of battle spells and merged battle techniques moves with spell divine arts, resulting in a power that was greater than battle techniques, or spells by themselves. This feat of founding had allowed Chancellor Ba Shan to be part of the circle of strong practitioners of the sect master level. In this current world, there was no one who could surpass his attainments in ultimate skills of battle spells. The only weakness of battle spell ultimate skills was that it wasn't as flexible as battle techniques or spells by itself. This was why even though Chancellor Ba Shan had become a strong practitioner of the sect master level, he was unable to take another step forward. Could it be Sister Yushio? Why is she fighting with the princes and princesses? The dragon Chilene was so hungry that his steps were shaky and his belly had shriveled up. Qin Mu suppressed his urge to go watch the battle and continued on to the warehouse to buy the herbs. After the apothecary of the warehouse had handed him the herbs, only then did he see the huge creature behind Qin Mu's back and was stunned. Qin Mu brought the dragon Chilene back on the road they came from and analyzed the medicinal energy of the herbs on their way back, refining out a furnace of scarlet fire spirit pills. The dragon Chilene hurriedly ate it, and still wasn't full from a furnace of spirit pills. Looking at Qin Mu pleadingly, Qin Mu could only refine another furnace of pills to finally satisfy the huge creature's appetite. The dragon Chilene was enlivened and followed beside him with a smile. "From now on, you can find me for anything. I'm pretty good at fighting." Qin Mu shook his head and walked towards Royalties Park. Hu Ling sneered, "You don't even dare to fight a bull and still say you're good at fighting." The dragon Chilene instantly became downcast. Royalties Park still had a vast crowd in front of it and there were even more people. He heard a scholar said, "Is there still no one in Royalties Park that could defeat her? Ever since the 7th princess has come back from experiencing the outside world, she seems like a changed person. Her abilities have improved rapidly. Merging spells and battle techniques together, on top of that, the 9-dragon monarch technique of the royal family, the 7th princess, could basically sweep the entire Royalties Park. I wonder if she can block the gate of Scholars' Residence and Divine Arts Residence. I can't say for Divine Arts Residence, but she probably can't do it for Scholars' Residence. After all, there's that devil in Scholars' Residence." "That's true. It's been 3 months since we saw that devil. He must have died outside, eliminating a huge scourge in Scholars' Residence at last. With that devil's abilities, it doesn't mean he can defeat the 7th princess." Out of the way, everyone out of the way. Most of the scholars felt a disturbance coming from the back and looked behind. They couldn't help being stunned when they saw a huge creature that was half dragon half Chilene nudging his body and pushing the scholars who were blocking the road to one side. There were some scholars that lost their footing when they got pushed by this dragon Chilene, flying out from the crowd. This huge creature pushed everyone away and squeezed his way towards the gate of Royalties Park, clearing a path. All the scholars were stunned from the sight and subconsciously felt terrified. Even the royalties in Royalties Park, who were more knowledgeable, couldn't help staring at this awe-inspiring dragon Chilene, unable to move their gazes away. The dragon Chilene swayed his body and shook his hair, turning his head to smile. "Young master, these visually impaired have already cleared a path for you. Young master, this way." Qin Mu walked to the gate of Royalties Park and reproached, too flamboyant, too flamboyant. "You can't do this next time. Senior brothers, senior sisters, excuse me, excuse me." Everyone had their expression frozen on their faces. Qin Mu looked towards Royalties Park and saw Ling Yushio sealing her 5 elements, divine treasure, as she fought with Prince Minue. Prince Minue was also another scholar that Chancellor Ba Shan had chosen, and with just a few moves, Prince Minue couldn't withstand that astonishing explosive power from Ling Yushio and got blown away. Ling Yushio burst her 5 elements, divine treasure open, and 9 dragons coiled around her body, looking really valiant and formidable looking as she glowed with health and vigor. Qin Mu exclaimed to himself. After Ling Yushio had experienced the journey to Roland's Golden Palace, her cultivation increased by leaps and bounds. These 3 months made her hold an overwhelming advantage against the other scholars. It was evident that she cultivated diligently after she had blocked the gate at Roland's Golden Palace, cultivating 9 dragons monarch technique even more in-depth and patching up her weakness of having an unstable foundation. Chancellor Ba Shan's teaching in line with one's ability was different from what the directorates of Imperial College taught. He focused on Ling Yushio's weakness to groom her and finally allowed her to have a huge growth. However, Qin Mu looked at Royalties Park, which was almost torn down by this imperial princess. No idea who had she learned from to be so violent. The one that herds cows. Ling Yushio saw Qin Mu and her eyes lit up. She waved towards the royalty of Royalties Park and smiled. "I'll stop for today, we'll fight another day." After she was done, she walked towards Qin Mu. Qin Mu praised, "Sister Yushio, I haven't seen you for these few months and you've gotten even more powerful." Ling Yushio grumbled, "Where have you been these days? You made me very worried." She immediately followed up, "Chancellor Ba Shan is also very worried about you. You don't know, the Grand Chancellor has resigned. The new Grand Chancellor isn't Chancellor Ba Shan, and is that man sealed in ice, which was rescued out from Surging River Dragon Palace by me and little General Qin." Man sealed in ice. Qin Mu's heart moved slightly. Could it be Jiu Linwan? Ling Yushio saw that there was still a vast crowd gazing at them, and she was still shy after all, so she whispered, "There are many people here, let us go talk in my room." Qin Mu nodded his head and followed her. As the two of them walked into Royalties Park, a figure suddenly flashed and a handsome young man appeared in front of them with a solemn face. "Seventh sister, how can you anyhow let a man into a woman's room? Let's go to my room instead." Ling Yushio's face turned red and said yes softly. Ling Yushio said with a black face, "Scholar Qin, please." Qin Mu was bewildered. He had no idea where he had offended this imperial prince before, and he looked at him as though he wanted to gobble him up. They came to Ling Yushio's residence in Royalties Park, and saw that this place had been decorated to look like a sunny south garden, which looked very elegant. Even though the fake mountains weren't as high as mountains, they had running water wandering around. Even though the garden wasn't as huge as a forest, it was still a path to a serene and secluded place, being several times better than scholars' residence. This place was like a small palace, and there were even palace maids walking to and fro, waiting upon him politely. These palace maids were also divine arts practitioners, who were not only beautiful, and also had strong abilities. Ling Yushio led them to the pavilion, where there was quite a beautiful scenery and vast landscape. There were palace maids carrying an incense burner over and placed it beside the pavilion before lighting up the incense, causing the fragrance to rise in spirals. The sound of guqin sounded from not far away. This guqin's sound was very slow, and had a lingering temperament that was like two old men slowly playing chess, playing a tune or two after a brief pause, easily calming people's hearts down. Second Prince Shaw has quite a refined and elegant attitude of mind, Qin Mu exclaimed. Ling Yushio's expression softened and said, I still have to thank Academician Qin for taking care of my seventh sister during her trip to the Great Wall. Seventh sister has told me about the encounters in Roland's Golden Palace, and I know you have saved my sister many times. Yushio can't thank you enough in my heart. Ling Yushio smiled, Cowherd is very powerful. I thought he had died and I cried in front of the Roland's Golden Palace's shaman. The corner of Ling Yushio's eyes twitched. She cried. She didn't mention about this before. It's okay, it's just friendship of fellow schoolmates. This sister of mine also cried after a cat she had raised died, Ling Yushio thought to himself. We even met my cowherd's elders and the elders praised me being sensible, and were pleased with me, Ling Yushio smiled. The corner of Ling Yushio's eyes twitched again. She had already met the elders. Seventh sister didn't mention this either. Ling Yushio said excitedly, Second brother, Chancellor Ba Shan, is indeed powerful. My abilities have improved hugely after he brought us out. You also saw it. If Chancellor Ba Shan can bring me and Cowherd out more, even you can't defeat me. Ling Yushio shook his head. I have inquired about it and Chancellor Ba Shan will bring other reserved scholars when he goes out the next time. Ling Yushio was slightly disappointed. Ling Yushio looked at Qin Mu and said, Father had appointed Ji Yulinwan as the Grand Chancellor, and I've heard you have some enmity with Ji Yulinwan. After Ji Yulinwan had become the Grand Chancellor, he also asked the directorates of Imperial College about you. Ling Yushio smiled. I know about their enmity. Ji Yulinwan's junior protector sword was scammed by Cowherd, so he bears slight grudges. Ling Yushio said, it's best for Academician Qin to return junior protector sword to Ji Yulinwan. This guy was born from the Devil Path, and is a master of the Devil Path who is usually petty. Father has appointed him as the Grand Chancellor, so I won't say much, but his breadth of mind is far inferior to the previous Grand Chancellor, so I can't assure he won't create trouble for you. I can be the mediator, and let you meet up with him to resolve the enmity between you two. I guess he would let it go for my sake. Qin Mu shook his head and said, the rule of our great ruins is that there is no need to return things that are scammed. Ling Yushio seemed to give a smile that's yet not a smile, but this place is not great ruins. He is the Grand Chancellor, and it's very easy for him to take revenge on you. Qin Mu gave it some thought and said, I've heard that Ji Yulinwan said he was the junior protector of the Crown Prince. Junior protector of the Crown Prince means that he should be the teacher when the Crown Prince was young, am I right? Second Prince, do you think Ji Yulinwan will give face to you? Ling Yushio's heart trembled slightly. Qin Mu continued, Second Prince, if he's willing to resolve the grudges, it's not a problem for me to break the rules of Great Ruins by returning Junior Protector Sword to him. However, I feel that even if I return Junior Protector Sword to him, he still won't give you face nor will he resolve the grudges. Furthermore, Second Prince, ain't you worried about his giving you a hard time? Ling Yushio had a flickering expression, as Qin Mu was right about his worry. Ji Yulinwan was the teacher of the Crown Prince when he was young. The Crown Prince was older than him and occupied the position of the Crown Prince. If one could say that there was a world difference between a royalty and a commoner, and the difference was as vast as the sky and the earth, then one could also say the difference between a Crown Prince and an Imperial Prince was as vast as the sky and the earth as well. Ji Yulinwan would definitely not give him face, and on the contrary, he would deliberately create trouble for him. He could confirm this for sure now. I won't interfere with the matter between you and Ji Yulinwan. Ling Yushio came to a decision and said, but you must be careful, the way Ji Yulinwan handles things is not like the previous Grand Chancellor. He doesn't have the breadth of mind for the long-term influence of a solid education. Qin Mu nodded his head and said, don't worry. Gu Linwan will at most create trouble for me and not dare to go overboard. Ling Yushio had a weird expression. Qin Mu seemed to be talking too big. Where did his confidence come from? Could he and seventh sister have already? A bad thought floated up in his mind. If he becomes the emperor's son-in-law, there was indeed no need for him to be afraid of Gu Linwan. Ling Yushio was silent for a moment and said, I plan to leave Imperial College and head to the borders to lead my troops. I'm the general of roaming cavalry and have an official position on me. Furthermore, I've also reached the age to lead the army. However, I'm just worried about my seventh sister. Qin Mu assured him, Don't worry, second prince, there's me. The corners of Ling Yushio's eyes twitched as he thought to himself, That's exactly why I'm worried. Qin Mu chatted with the siblings for a moment before rising to bid farewell. I just came back home from a trip and have yet placed my luggage down. I have to return to Scholar's residence first. Ling Yushio sent him out of Royalties Park and kept silent for a moment before saying to Ling Yushio, Academician Qin's frame of mind is not like a youth. He sees things very clearly and will definitely be a very capable person in the future. His words earlier struck the bottom of my heart. Ling Yushio burst into laughter and said, Who says he's an adult? He doesn't even know anything and even says I'm chubby. He doesn't even know how to say appealing words. Ling Yushio shook his head and said, I'm going to write a letter to father and leave Imperial College. I can't be a scholar anymore. Now that Gu Linwan has become the Grand Chancellor, he most likely won't give you a nice look. If you can't stay in Imperial College any longer, you can follow me to the borders. Ling Yushio nodded her head. Don't worry, second brother. If I can't stay here any longer, I'll definitely go find you at the borders. However, I still want to cultivate along with Chancellor Ba Shan. Ling Yushio looked at her and knew exactly what she was thinking, but he couldn't say anything and could only shake his head. Qin Mu returned to Scholar's residence, and the huge dragon Chilene followed behind him. On their way back, most of the scholars in Scholar's residence gazed at them with envy. Yun Q came up with a smile and said, Sister Fox, I have earned enough money. Can I redeem my clothes back? Hu Linga took over the coin pouch and gave it a press before nodding her head, Wait for a moment. I'll go get it for you. Yun Q was full of thanks. Hu Linga returned to the house to get his clothes back while shouting out, Those that owe me money, quickly take your money out to redeem your certificate of indebtedness. After a moment, a few scholars came over with resentful expressions to redeem their certificates of indebtedness. Hu Linga was very satisfied and said, Next time you get beaten by young master, I can give you 20% discount. A scholar shook his head. Imperial Academician is a 6th-ranking official, who dares to challenge him? Hu Linga was stunned for a moment before turning her head to tell Qin Mu, Young master, we lost our source of income. Our whole fortune is going to be eaten up, and we can't raise this big fella anymore. The dragon Chilene pulled his head back and muttered, A liter of scarlet fire spirit pills each day is also fine, as long as there's something to eat. Qin Mu consoled, Don't worry, I can raise you. That's right, do you have some saliva? Give me a bottle and let me see if I can exchange it for money. Hu Linga fetched a jade bottle over and collected a bottle of dragon's saliva. Qin Mu kept the bottle safely and instructed them to stay home, while he went to Hall of Supreme Healing. The few old imperial physicians were researching prescriptions in the hall, and were all delighted when they saw him. Little divine physician is finally back. What spirit pill do you plan to make today? If it's an anesthetic or poison, please warn us beforehand. Qin Mu greeted these imperial physicians and said, I'm here to find imperial physicians to test a medicine. After he had said that, he took out a small jade bottle. When the few imperial physicians saw this small jade bottle, their expression changed hugely. Imperial physician, you asked with a trembling voice, I recognize this bottle. Is it another anesthetic? Nope, it's a healing panacea. When Qin Mu said that, Imperial physician, you took out a small knife and hesitated for a moment before giving a slice on Imperial physician Ding's arm, causing the fresh blood to flow out. Imperial physician Ding went into a fury and was about to blow up when Qin Mu hurried forward. He opened the jade bottle and applied a little dragon's saliva on the wound, only to see the wound heal immediately, and returning to its original state, within a few breaths' time, without even having a scar. The few Imperial physicians were astonished, and they immediately gathered forward. Imperial physician, you asked, to what extent of injuries can this healing panacea cure? Can it reattach broken limbs? Qin Mu nodded his head, it can. There was a person who got severed from the waist, and I had used this medicine to reattach his body, returning it to normal. However, this medicine only acts as a support. The tendons and nerves still need to be manually reattached, which puts one's technique to the test. Imperial physician Ding glanced to the side, and saw Imperial physician Yu raised his knife again, and immediately shouted, "If you dare to chop me, I'll poison your whole family." Imperial physician Yu couldn't do it, and went out of the hall. After a moment, he brought a scholar in. All the Imperial physicians immediately shook their heads, and Imperial physician Yu stomped his feet in anger. "Old Yu, are you mad? Even if you want to test medicine, you can't chop his limbs." That scholar broke out in cold sweat when he heard it and immediately ran away. Imperial physician Yu wanted to catch him back, and was immediately blocked by the other Imperial physicians. "You can't, you absolutely can't. Scholars are 8 ranking officials. You're going to face a lawsuit if you chop their limbs off." Daoist Ling Yun has a crane that had fought with Chancellor Ba Shan's green cow a few days ago, and got her leg broken by the green cow. You can fetch that crane over and sever her leg to reattach it. Imperial physician Yu went out again, and brought the crane back after a moment. Imperial physician Chu clamped the crane's beak, making the crane indescribably terrified, and unable to struggle. Imperial physician Yu followed the injuries, and severed the leg off. The few Imperial physicians cleaned up the shattered bones and waited for Qin Mu to treat it. After a moment, Daoist Ling Yun barged in, and was about to blow up, when he saw Qin Mu reattaching the crane's broken bones before reattaching the muscles and nerves, clearing the bone marrow. Daoist Ling Yun didn't dare to say a word and waited until Qin Mu had finished reattaching the leg. Only then did the Imperial physicians loosen their restraint. That crane immediately stood up and moved her leg around in astonishment. She expressed her thanks to Qin Mu sincerely, with a loud and clear voice, which belonged to a little girl. Qin Mu wrote down a prescription, and handed it to Daoist Ling Yun. "Brew medicines on this prescription, and boil some water to soak her injured leg. It can help stimulate the nerves and channels, removing any hidden damages." Daoist Ling Yun saw his crane recovering, and couldn't help being surprised and delighted. He immediately took the prescription, and expressed his thanks profusely with a smile. "You beat me in front of the Emperor, and I had still borne some grudges before. Now I am even grateful to you." Qin Mu smiled. "Don't fight, won't make friends." Daoist Ling Yun kept feeling this sentence was a little awkward and used in the wrong circumstances, but he didn't brood on it. He immediately called his crane over and headed to the warehouse to grab the herbs. Qin Mu smiled. "Imperial physicians, how much does this bottle of healing medicine worth? I'm recently tight on money." The few Imperial physicians were surprised and delighted. Imperial physician Yu said, "Little divine physician wants to sell. It has quite a considerable value. This kind of healing medicine is even more precious than any natural treasures to the soldiers on the battlefield. I reckon it would be worth 10,000 great abundance coins." Qin Mu was astonished and said, "Even faster than Fan Yunxiao robbing people." "What?" The Imperial physician didn't catch what he said. "Nothing much." Qin Mu smiled. "I can refine a bottle out every day, and sell it of Hall of Supreme Healing for 10,000 gold, how is that?" The Imperial physician's eyes lighted up and they looked at one another. Imperial physician Yu said, "That would naturally be the best." Qin Mu was satisfied and took his leave. The white heads of the few Imperial physicians huddled together, and Imperial physician Chu said, "We're getting rich." All the Imperial physicians nodded their heads, unable to contain their excitement. "Old Yu is still the wise one. This small bottle of healing medicine isn't worth just 10,000 gold. We can easily earn 2 times the price by selling it." Qin Mu walked out of Hall of Supreme Healing and returned to Scholar's residence when a voice suddenly came from behind him. "Little bald donkey, where's your Kakra staff?" Qin Mu stopped and turned around to look at the elder in purple behind him. With a smile on his face, he bowed. Student meets Grand Chancellor Gu. This elder in purple was Gu Linwan, and the 9 coat of arms was nowhere to be seen on his purple robes. It seemed like he had taken off his first-ranking official robes, and changed into third-ranking official robes. Gu Linwan gave a wee smile and walked toward him while speaking leisurely. When you scammed my junior protector sword, did you expect the day would come that you would land in the grasp of my hand instead? Qin Mu shook his head and said, what is Grand Chancellor saying this for? Gu Linwan gave a haughty smile and stretched out his hand. Hand it over. Qin Mu shook his head again. I never return the things I scammed. Gu Linwan gave off a fierce gaze and Qin Mu was not scared at all. I'm now a 6th-ranking official and the Imperial Academician that was appointed by the Emperor himself. Empress Dowager's illness was cured by me. If you touch me, the Emperor will execute your whole family. Boom. The devil Qi around Gu Linwan went into a turmoil and formed 1,000 feet devil god behind him with murderous looking. That 1,000 feet devil god solidified the surrounding air and seemed to even warp the space as well, making this devil look warped like the blazing noon sun scorching the ground as it stared fiercely at him. Qin Mu smiled and asked, does Grand Chancellor still have anything else? Gu Linwan said coldly, if I want to kill you, I won't have to do it myself. You also won't dare to do it. Before Qin Mu could say anything, a voice sounded behind Gu Linwan, if you touch my junior brother, there's no need for the Emperor to execute your whole family. I'll execute your whole family. Gu Linwan's body froze and he felt as if there was an unbreakable knife at his neck. He chuckled and said, Chancellor Ba Shan. You want to stand up for this little bald donkey? Chancellor Ba Shan stood behind him with his chest wide open, and his 2 knives rattling non-stop behind his back. Without any expression, he said, Old Gu, you have not appeared for 200 years, your path, skills and divine arts are already behind times. Do you need me to give you some guidance? Gu Linwan suddenly laughed out loudly and his body vanished as he turned into Devil Qi. With his voice coming from afar, he mocked, give me guidance. Except it was heaven knife here. Qin Mu turned around and suddenly saw a knife Qi breaking through the air to chase that Devil Qi. Chancellor Ba Shan always likes to fight, and must be delighted to see a prey. I reckon he's going to fight with Gu Linwan. What a pity I can't catch up to them. Qin Mu sighed and returned to Scholar's residence. Just as he entered the door, he heard Hu Ling's voice sounding out, young master, we have a visitor. Qin Mu entered the door, and couldn't help being stunned, when he saw a middle-aged man waiting in the courtyard with hands behind his back. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor turned around and his gaze landed on him, the sacred cult master of Heavenly Saint Cult. Who would have thought he is the first Imperial Academician of our Imperial College? How interesting. Qin Mu's mind trembled hugely as he walked into the courtyard. Imperial Preceptor didn't come over just to talk about interesting stuff. Linger, watch the tea. Hu Linger immediately said, young master, our house has no tea, you don't drink tea. Qin Mu laughed and said, buy and prepare some tea in the future. Since we have no tea, watch the seats. There are only a few broken stools in Scholar's residence, where do we have seats? The little fox grumbled. Qin Mu was slightly awkward. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor waved his hand and smiled, no need to trouble yourself, I'll just say a few words with Cult Master and I'll leave. Qin Mu's gaze landed on his face. This appearance of Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, the number 1 man under gods that awed the world, couldn't be said to be extremely handsome. He only looked ordinary, but there was an indescribable flavor to his face. It was the type that the more you watched it, it grew more and more pleasing in your eyes. His eyes stood out the most on his body. They were eyes that were filled with wisdom and seemed to carry a little sparkle in them, watching over everything in the world to make the wisest decision. To this Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, Qin Mu had a favorable impression, and was filled with admiration to this pioneer, who broke away from the old conventions. For Eternal Peace Empire to be what it is today, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor has a higher contribution than the Emperor. Taking charge of the reform to reform the army and the government, to break the view of sects, to break the barrier between the 3 big sects by establishing primary schools, colleges, an Imperial College, to set up an institution for scholars. This eternal peace Imperial Preceptor has made this generation become exceptionally wonderful. Even though he admired him, Qin Mu still had criticism and resentment to this eternal peace Imperial Preceptor. Eternal peace Imperial Preceptor was not only gifted by heavens, he was also ruthless. He sent a punitive expedition to Great Ruins, and even though he beat a retreat in the face of difficulties, it didn't mean he won't do it the next time. He suppressed all countries with armed force and annexed them. To uproot those that opposed him, he faked that he was severely injured to bait those sects, who had already acknowledged their allegiance to rebel, causing the people to be in a terrible situation. This was not a perfect person. From the beginning to the end, Qin Mu couldn't see what this man was trying to achieve. His breadth of mind was vast and could clearly show tolerance for the whole world, yet he had to extinguish other countries and invade Great Ruins so as to gain more land for Eternal Peace Empire. He clearly had no lust for power, but he didn't hesitate to raise a bloodbath just to eradicate those that opposed him. To Qin Mu, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was like a contradiction. It was very difficult to guess what he was thinking. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was also sizing him up, and after a moment, he said with a gentle voice, "The Sacred Cult Master, or Heavenly Saint Cult, is unexpectedly young." I was also shocked when I had received news that the Sacred Cult Master was actually the Imperial Academician of our Imperial College. "You didn't seem surprised when you saw me." Qin Mu said, "Heavenly Saint Cult provides education for everyone, irrespective of background, therefore it's natural that Imperial Preceptor could place a few men among the higher-ups of Heavenly Saint Cult. I'm not surprised Imperial Preceptor could discover my identity so quickly." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor nodded his head. The Sacred Cult Master of Heavenly Saint Cult should have this kind of wisdom. "However, how did you not panic when you saw me? Aren't you afraid I'm here to kill you?" "If Imperial Preceptor wants to kill me, there's no use even if I panic." Qin Mu said, "If you don't kill me, Heavenly Saint Cult won't rebel. If you kill me, Heavenly Saint Cult will rebel. My life is not as valuable as Heavenly Saint Cult, so Imperial Preceptor doesn't have the need to kill me. Therefore there's no need for me to panic." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor smiled. "Don't be so sure. It's good to be smart, but you might guess wrong if you're overconfident. However, you had indeed moved my heart. You said Heavenly Saint Cult won't rebel. Can you tell me the reason?" Qin Mu said, "We have the same philosophy, so there's no need to rebel." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "I've heard the first thing you had done after you became the Cult Master is to establish the 361st Hall, to set up School Hall." Qin Mu nodded his head. "I'm imitating Imperial Preceptor to reform Heavenly Saint Cult." Heavenly Saint Cult was originally an empire draped with the name of a sect. If you imitate me and reform Heavenly Saint Cult, won't it become the empire within the empire in my eternal peace? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor asked, "If it was during times of peace, you guys would definitely not rebel, but if the world is in chaos, why don't you guys take this chance to rise up and overtake as the Orthodox?" The reason why Heavenly Saint Cult didn't rebel in this period of unrest is not that we don't want to overtake as the Orthodox, and is because the current Eternal Peace Empire is a large-scaled Heavenly Saint Cult. Qin Mu smiled. "Why do we have to rebel ourselves? In that case, when will you guys rebel?" Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor became interested and asked. Qin Mu solemnly said, "When the time comes for Imperial Preceptor to betray the philosophy of Heavenly Saint Cult and no longer to carry out the path of the saint, that's the time Eternal Peace Empire would no longer be Heavenly Saint Cult, and my Heavenly Saint Cult will definitely rebel." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor gave him a glance while exclaiming, "What great guts you have." Qin Mu said, "This isn't great guts. I have to tell the truth, because Imperial Preceptor will know if I lie." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor slowly walked to the well in the courtyard, and said at a speed that was neither too fast nor too slow, "You came from Great Ruins, and have no foundation in Heavenly Saint Cult. I originally planned to control you, and let you borrow my power to establish yourself in Heavenly Saint Cult. However, I no longer have this idea." Qin Mu walked to his side and heard Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor continuing, "People like you are dangerous. Those who have their own ideas are usually very dangerous, and give people a headache since it's very difficult to convince them. Convincing a person is the most strenuous thing, and it would be better off by simply killing them. To convince a cult, that's even more strenuous, and it would be better off to eradicate them. No matter if it's Tao sect or Great Thunderclap Monastery, they have their own philosophies, and it's very hard to convince them. It's the same for Heavenly Saint cult. He kept silent for a moment and said, luckily the philosophy of Heavenly Saint cult and the philosophy of Eternal Peace Empire don't conflict. Qin Mu was curious. Imperial Preceptor won't touch Heavenly Saint cult for now. What about Tao sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery? That would depend on what they do. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said seriously, let's see if they could achieve knowledge is action and action is knowledge. If they could carry out their ideas and achieve knowledge is action and action is knowledge, I will do everything in my power to get rid of them. If they can't do it, it isn't hard for them to live on. Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly and asked, what's Imperial Preceptor's philosophy then? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor shook his head. I have no need to tell you. Don't look at what I say, look at what I do. My philosophy is in my actions. This is knowledge is action and action is knowledge. Young Sacred Cult Master, you still have a long road to go. Qin Mu still couldn't see through this person. Qin Mu, at the current stage, still could not debate over the philosophy with people like Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's eyesight was too high and his knowledge was too vast and too shrewd. His understanding of the paths, skills and divine arts had reached such a level that people could only look up to him. Qin Mu was not yet at this level. He couldn't think through Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's thought and didn't know if he would be a friend or foe. However, as for now, Qin Mu had to plan for Heavenly Devil Cult's future as the Sacred Cult Master. As for the internal strife in Eternal Peace Empire, our Heavenly Saint cult would fully support Imperial Preceptor. Qin Mu carefully thought of a way to express his words. However, I need a promise from Imperial Preceptor. After quelling the rebellion, would Imperial Preceptor eradicate our cult and burn the bridges? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor turned to look at him and replied, I won't. Qin Mu gave an expression of inquiry. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said leisurely, I need encouragement. Leaving Heavenly Devil Cult means, I'm leaving a sword hanging over my head, spurring me and warning me that I can't make any mistake. He gave a smile, if I'm too strong, even I made a mistake, what people could do to me. I need a power which can kill me when I lose my Tao heart. Heavenly Saint cult is very good. If I go against your philosophy, I'll be waiting for you to kill me. Qin Mu was slightly frightened. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor took a step and left. Qin Mu let out a murky breath and felt his hairs almost exploding out. There was only one thought in his mind, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor isn't a human. Non-human. As long as it's a human, it would have 7 emotional states and 6 desires. It would have thoughts of selfishness. Yet Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor didn't have 7 emotional states, 6 desires, and totally no thoughts of selfishness. Without these things, he was a human no more. Or perhaps, he could be called a saint. Could Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor be a saint? He composed himself and drove away the thoughts that plagued him. At this moment, the dragon Chilene spoke with a low and muffled voice, this person is very terrifying. He stood here and I could see him, however I couldn't feel him. Qin Mu was slightly stunned. He did not use Green Heaven's eyes to take a look at Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, and lost a chance. He had once used Heaven's eyes to look at Village Chief, and he saw a magnificent and imposing god that had an intact body. If he looked at Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, what would he see? Outside Scholar's residence, Qin Feiyue was bowing and waiting outside as Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor walked over and said, let's return. Qin Feiyue didn't dare to say much, and while they were walking, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor suddenly said, Grand Chancellor has good judgment. Qin Feiyue smiled. Ji Yulinwan might be not bad, but after being sealed in ice for 200 years and not moving forward, I'm afraid he might be behind times. I meant the other Grand Chancellor. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor turned his head back and said, the successor he has chosen is very good and showing great promise. However, he's very like me and it made me slightly uncomfortable seeing this person, as I kept thinking of killing him. Qin Feiyue didn't understand what he was saying. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor walked further and further away while muttering, I hate looking in the mirror. The me in the mirror is never as perfect as the me in my ideals. In Scholar's residence, Qin Mu could finally be at ease. His unity technique was yet perfected, and he had to calm his heart down to comprehend it attentively, perfecting it as much as he could. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor gave him a very big impact. A person who fights for his ideals always gives a charm that makes people admire from the bottom of their heart. As for Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor saying that leaving Heavenly Devil cult meant leaving a sword hanging above his head, to achieve this step, it was very difficult. Even with the combined power of the entire Heavenly Devil cult, they couldn't achieve this step. Since Imperial Preceptor is so heroic, we have to fulfill his wish. Qin Mu executed his technique and slowly walked in the courtyard. He comprehended the unity technique he had created from the foundation of Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique in detail, and sorted them out. He also took out great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures from time to time to make some referencing. After quite some time, Qin Mu let out a murky breath, and his speed suddenly increased. He sprinted frantically throughout the whole mountain, and executed the unity technique, which he had comprehended out. His body flitted back and forth the mountain like flickering light and passing shadows. This video will end here.